So very good afternoon to all of you. All our panelists and all our participants are here. So we are almost going to start. To all the participants for joining us, I am very thankful with our seventh session of The Wire. All the librarians, researchers, and everyone from the knowledge and research fraternity, thank you so much for joining with us. I am Dr. Shriparna Samanta, working as a manager relationships academic and corporate with Team Balani Infotech. The Wire series of webinars is the brainchild of our CEO and visionary, Mr. Kailash Balani. We at Balani Infotech are serving the knowledge and research fraternity with the resources of their need from many past decades. As a service provider to this community and as a social, ethical, and moral duty to them, we thought of doing something more to them. Taking this thought a step forward, we have created this platform, The Wire, where we call different experts from different fields and tried to provide valuable information for much broader audience. This will be our seventh The Wire session. Previous to this, we have conducted sessions on library transition during the pandemic situation and many more. So on behalf of Team Balani, I would like to thank you all once again for joining us for this very informative webinar on the importance of archival content in research. Before starting our session, I would like to mention some ground rules. If anybody drops out of the session, then please join us back on the same link. After the talk, we will open the question and answer section where participants can ask their question to our speakers in the chat box. And the most exciting part of our today's session will be the quiz. So after the session, we will be conducting a quiz. There will be 3 winners announced who all will be getting Amazon gift cards. E-certificates will be provided to the participants within 15 working days after the session. Today, we have with us our keynote speaker, Professor R.C. Gaur sir, Dean and Director and Head Kalanidhi Division at Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts, New Delhi, Ministry of Culture, Government of India. We have our guest speaker, David. He has been the head of library sales for British Online Archive since 2018. Our panelists for today's discussion across the country, they all are expert in their respective field. We have Dr. Maltesh, former university librarian, consultant librarian at Rajiv Gandhi University, Arunachal Pradesh. Then we have Professor Majumdar with us. She is professor from DICT, Humanities and Social Science Division, Gandhinagar, Gujarat. We have Dr. M.V. Usha Devi with us. She is HOD, History Department, Bangalore University. We have Mr. Vishwajit Saha. He is working as University Librarian of Kaji Nazrul University, State University, Asansol, West Bengal. So without wasting any more time, I would like to introduce Dr. R.C. Gaur sir, though he's a very, very well-known personality to all of you and need no introduction. Still a brief introduction, I would say it a brief, but because it will take at least a whole day if I start giving his whole introduction. So Professor R.C. Gaur is presently Dean and Director and Head Kalanidhi Division at Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts, New Delhi, Ministry of Culture, Government of India. During the period of 2011 to January 2018, he was the University Librarian, JNU. His past assignments includes TIFR, CRRI, CSIR, RIS, New Delhi, Management Development Institute, and IMT Ghaziabad. Professor Gaur has visited more than 24 countries. He is a Fulbright scholar, has received and honored more than 14 awards in recognition of his exemplary work. Professor Gaur is the first Indian nominated as member International Advisory Committee, IASC University, Memory of the World Program. He is also a member of the Expert Consultation Committee for setting up the International Center on Documentary Heritage, ICDH, in South Korea. He is member of many other important national and international professional bodies. Some of the important affiliations includes member governing council Implement, member of Research Council RC for CSIR, National Institute of Science Communication, Information Resources, and many more. So welcome Ramesh sir. I would now like to invite you for the opening keynote address and over to you for your valuable inputs on the topic. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shriparna, for your very generous and kind introduction. And I also thank you and Mr. Balani for such a novel thought to have this important discussion. Like there are very few such discussion on concerning archives and archival collections, and I really appreciate you you have chosen this particular topic, and I'm glad we have such an eminent panel in this discussion. Professor Madhumita Majumdar, Dr. Usha Devi, both from different fields as a expert user community, and then we have two very important university librarians, my dear friend Maltesh and Vishwajit, and of course we have a very important guest speaker, Mr. David Sarsfield. So uh, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to kick off this particular webinar. Uh, Let me share my PPT, then I will start talking on this topic. Hope you can see my PPT.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, you can see.
Yeah. So when we talk about archives and archival science in India, so let me just give you one little background before that. Unfortunately, let me begin with India. This subject has not been very well thought of. Archival science as a subject has not emerged. And when we talk about state of archives in India, still there is a confusion. Like most of these archives are left to the people who are having history background or some people with conservation background. Unfortunately, uh, the people in policymakers and also those who are running these archives, they have never thought of that archive required a complete discipline, archival science, and understanding of uh, archival science is very important, except a small certificate course in National Archive of India. There are few courses which are museology and history. Rest, there is no formal education. So you can understand the state of affairs when there is no formal education in archival science in this country. So how archives are managed? I have been last 15 years. I have been very closely associated with various cultural heritage institutions at IGNCA. My first time from 2004 to 11, and now after coming back from JNU 2018 onwards. I have been part of many committees and various boards dealing with these archives. You will be surprised to know that most of the national archives in the world are headed by people who are having archival science background or library science background. But in our country, not a single person ever headed National Archive of India with these backgrounds. Mostly people who are coming from history or archaeology and other this discipline are taking care of that. So and moreover, even the community, archival community is also not very clear about their aims and objective. So this is the kind of state of affairs uh, of archives in this country, and that's the reason, like you can well understood, like when we talk about access to the archives. Recently, I have done a survey under with UNESCO, mapping of archives in India. I'm not going to share those recommend reports of that survey because it is under preparation, and I will share on an appropriate time on an appropriate platform. But I can tell you that survey is very disappointing. As an estimate, we have about 400 archives, different types of archives in this country. And I tried for 1 year to get the response, and hardly 70 to 80 archives responded to the questionnaire which I have sent for data collection, despite of personal visits, emails, personal survey, and that's a problem. Like those people who are running those archives, they don't understand the various aspects of archives. So yes, we are in a situation which is not conducive for growth of archives and archival science in India. So in that, as I have been asked to kick off, let me just give you some brief idea, because I'm sure people will talk more on importance of archival science. But let me just kick off with some understanding why archives, why we need archives. That's a very important question. So basically, to identify, appraise, preserve, and make available documentary heritage material of long-term value, which is important for the organization, for the society, for the humanity. And it is also on part of government to ensure that government should preserve the all government important public records, all kind of information, and the documentary heritage which is required for the posterity. This is the responsibility of all governments in the world, to preserve the contents for the posterity. And it is also, these documents also help in ensuring the accountability of other stakeholders. Like alone government cannot do it. So there are a number of other stakeholders who have responsibility to preserve these various kind of unique collections. And these unique collections are scattered in different, within different individual, with the institution, with the temples, with the mosques, with the madrasa, and all kind of religious institutions. And also a lot of non-government organizations are working. And uh, these collections uh, are our memories. That's why we call it, such institutions, also memory institutions. If you talk about UNESCO Memory of the World Program, it is referring directly, because we are preserving memory. And that is basically why we are doing all those things. Apart from preserving our cultural heritage, we also need to support scholarly, administrative, and personal research, because main objective of libraries and archives is always research. So uh, I will not go into more details about defining archives, because you all are very expert, and all these definitions are available on the internet about various kind of archives. These archives contain materials which is very specific in nature, like manuscripts, letters, photographs, moving images, sound images, artwork, books, diaries, artifacts, and the digital equivalent of all these material. So all kind of published, non-published material, which is historical nature, which is of rare nature, which is unique, are being preserved in these archives. And on the basis of aims and objectives and the motives of these archives, we can have different types of classification of these archives. Government archives like national archives and state archives in India. Then we have various kind of cultural archives. Universities, institutions, colleges, and various other research organizations also having their archives, like Tata Institute of Social Sciences having an archive. Differently, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research is having an archive. And then companies are having archives to preserve their history, business history. Like Godrej is having an archive. Uh, Tata is having an archive. There are a number of other archives, corporate archives. Then various kind of historical societies, they preserve different specific collections. Then museum archives, religious archive. Even private individuals are forming various kind of archive. Like I know many individuals who have their personal libraries and personal archive. And sometimes we have certain kind of special collections on focusing on subject specific archives. So like this is an example of state archives, Tripura State Archive. You all know National Archive, and this is the example of corporate archive. DCM Heritage Archive is a corporate archive. Delhi State is the example of Delhi State Archive. Then Khudawaks Oriental Public Library. It is basically a archive of different nature, which is preserving a particular heritage, a special collection on Persian and related on manuscripts or different kind of artifacts and objects. Similarly, this is an example of a uh, uh, kind of private archive. Savarna Roy Chaudhary Parivar Parishad Museum and Archive. Uh, Rukmini Devi Archive is an individual archive purpose given in this. Similarly, if you want to know more about the collections of these archives, I will give you in Kalanidhi, which I am heading in IGNCA, we have a wonderful cultural archive. And this cultural archive is also having various kind of collections like various uh, uh, we have divided these collections in some about 6 categories. So the first one is the literature sahitya. So that includes give an example, Dr. R.C. Rangara collection, audio recordings of interview with the writers of Indian languages. Then Voice of Tagore, audio recordings of Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. Akhilesh Mittal collection, recording of renowned poet Firaq Gorakhpuri. And so these are the some of the examples of a special collection on site. Then we have Vastu Silk. So we have collections like Lansdane collection of art objects. We have Vinay Vahel collection of Ajanta caves. We have Samunath Mitra collection of terracotta decorated temples of West Bengal. Similarly, photography, images, Chayapatra. So we have very important collection of great photographer Raja Deen Dayal. It's a glass plate negatives, it's a studio, it's a various kind of studio furniture, microfilm of the register, and various other artifacts and art object of this particular. Then we have photographic collection of Kartovesho. We have photographic collection of D.R.D. Walia. Similarly, we have collection from David Ulrich, Jyoti Bhatt, Ashwin Mehta, Martha, Sunil Jana, and so and so. Then we have another music category, Sangeet. So we have like Krishna Swami collection of audio, S. Natarajan collection of audio recording, B.K. Rangara collection of rare recordings of Carnatic music, Ranganaki Amgar collection of Western classic music, Dr. S. Venkatesh collection. So in that way, there are some other collections also. We have paintings, Elizabeth Bruno's painting, costumes, jewelries, some kind of clay tablets, some sculptures, some canvas painting, some old geographical maps, music disc, glass slide. So in that way, there are different kind of collections. Like this is the one collection, Mohan Kokar dance collection, which is one of the largest dance collection collected by one individual collector, Mr. Mohan Kokar. And after his death, his family donated. So we have about 45 such personal collection in our cultural archival collection beside libraries. Then a lot of slides, visuals. Like we have more than 108,000 visuals on different aspects. So these are the some of the examples for you. So now in the next part of my presentation, I will try to give you, like, when we talk about access to the archival collection, what are the important things? There are a number of barriers. I will tell you, there are a lot of mindset. People who are possessing these collections, it is most difficult to get access to these archival collection in this country. There are mindset, there are different kind of there is most of these collections are away from copyright, but still there are people are not providing material to them. And when we talk about creating catalog or digital, hardly there is any good repository or good archive which is available under open access. There are some initiative by Delhi State Archives. There is some initiative by Asiatic Society of Museum. So the biggest problem currently the research scholar in India are facing free access to this information, because that accessibility is very poor. First of all, they don't have proper catalog, so you don't know which collection is available where. Somehow, if you are able to locate, and when you are reaching there are so many ifs and buts. The researchers are being asked so many questions, so many permissions, and it is always discouraging to collect any kind of archival material from most of the institution. So I think when we talk about digitization, there are some digitization done. but not properly digitized, not properly accessible. Uh, there are some efforts, like we have a National Audio Video Cultural Archive. We have about 30,000 hours of audio video recording has been uploaded, but these are minimal efforts in this right direction. So uh, the accessibility is very poor. It need to be enhanced. Cataloging is to be done in proper manner. We need to enhance the open access, particularly in pandemic situation. There's hardly any access because archives were closed and researchers were unable to get any access. And these archival collections are important for all kind of research: historical research, anthropological research, sociological research, cultural studies, archaeological surveys, geographical research, literature study, art and craft. Uh, so much importance having in this context, but still, I think our archives and our people associated with archives have not understood and have not properly integrated or connected with the various kind of tools and technologies. So, what I want to conclude in the end, first thing, we need to have a proper cataloging, and we need to have uh, certain things under open access. Wherever there is no issues concerning the privacy and security, things should be available under open access. Digital archiving initiatives should be enhanced, which are not there. And the most important area which I want, if we want to have a good archives, good
Yes, sir.
archival collection, good
Yes,
access.
sir. God, sir.
Yeah, just concluding. I'm just concluding.
No, sir. This is not to conclude. I just want
Yeah.
to let everyone know there is a lot of noise. Please, everyone, keep your mics mute so that we can listen to God, sir, properly. Thank you.
Okay. I thought you were asking me for some. Okay. So my voice is clear.
Yes, sir. Very much.
Yeah. So the most important thing, which is I want to highlight here, is that uh, we need to consider this archive as a discipline, archival science as a discipline. We need to have good programs. IGNC is exploring to start a postgraduate diploma course in archival science, but we need more and more university courses in archival science, because IGNC is not a university. We can provide value addition, but currently we cannot provide degrees. So university should come forward. So first we need to have formal education and for School of Archival Sciences in some universities, and we need good training in archives. Second thing, we need to change mindset. Uh, Most of our archivists or the people I have been interacting, I find a lot of possessiveness. There is a nature not to open up, not to provide access to the material, because many times, like, there are certain mindset, people believe that if they provide access, people will not come to them. If you put it under open access, people will not come to us, and that those mindset need to be changed. There are certain kind of policies also required at the national level. And another important thing, uh, we cannot preserve these archival collection for posterity for forever. At one day, these are all material. Every media has a certain life, so that material will go away. So it is important to digitize these, and we should convert into various form. And the last thing which I want to recommend here is that use of modern emerging technology like virtual reality or augmentation or immersive technologies, because now the younger generation is not happy with the current form of those collections. We need to explore more options, and we need to make these collections more attractive in form of virtual exhibitions, in form of multimedias, in form of certain kind of walkthroughs, certain kind of videos, so that people can learn more through the technologies. So somewhere I think there is a greater need to really have a policy for these archives and archival science. And really we need to think over it, because my experience, my survey of last 2 years with the various archives in India, suggest that archives are in very bad state, and we need to work more towards its upliftment, or also cataloging, digitization, digital archiving, and open access towards these resources for the archival community. Only then we can benefit out of that. With these words, I just want to, because I was given 15 minutes, I think I have already taken that. I will not go more. I will not encroach in the time of other speakers. And these are my email IDs. Uh, I love to speak more on this subject, but today we have number of speakers and everybody will give their views. So later, sometime else, we will, then I will be organizing some event on this mapping of archives in India. We'll have more opportunity to listen me. With these words, thank you, Mr. Balani, Dr. Sirparna, for giving me this opportunity to share my views on this subject. These are the only scattered thought. It's not well-prepared presentation. So I hope some points might be useful to you. Thank you very much. Now I will conclude and stop sharing my screen, and will come back to the screen. And if you have any questions now or at the end of the webinar, I will be ready to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gaur sir, for your such valuable inputs. Actually, how important archives are to pass the information for our upcoming generation. You focused on that, and you shed some light over that topic particularly. And like I heard it for the very first time, Chaya Patra. So that is very interesting thing that sometime maybe I would like to know more about that. So thank you very much for your valuable inputs on our today's topic. So now I would like to invite our guest speaker, David from BOA, to deliver his talk on the importance of archives. David has been the head of library sales for British Online Archives, BOA, since 2018. Prior to this, he had worked as head of editorial from 2011 in BOA. He spends the majority of his time with librarians and academicians, prompting content and complements current teaching research within the humanities and social sciences of United Kingdom and Europe. He also coordinates with the sales representative to build and promote the BOA brand in North America, Australia, China, India, and Japan. So now, David, it's over to you. You are more than invited to start your presentation. Thank you so much. And I request everybody to please keep their themselves on mute, because of the background noise, it's a bit difficult for the speaker to speak. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Sripana. Thank you to begin with for Balani Infotech, Mr. Kailash Balani, for inviting me to do this talk today. And thanks also to Professor Gore for a very interesting talk there. A very tough act to follow, so hopefully I'll do well. Just to point out, people, before I go into the presentation, I may not be able to stay until the end of the session, unfortunately. However, if anybody does have any questions, if they want to forward them onto Sripana, and then Sripana in turn can then forward them onto me, and I'll get back to any kind of specific questions as soon as possible, really. So yeah, okay, I'm just going to share my screen now. Okay, can we see this just to begin with?
Yes, David, we can see you. Yeah.
Brilliant, that's great. Okay, so yeah, my name's David Sarsfield. I'm currently the head of library sales here at British Online Archives, and I'm here to talk about the importance of archival content and research, but through the more specific kind of lens of an academic publisher that is dedicated to the digitization of archival content and is edited in such a way that is we provide access to this on a commercial basis to teaching and research within the humanities and social sciences worldwide. As Sripana mentioned at the outset, we have sales representation in many territories across the world, including India, through the good work of Balani Infotech. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of a good place to start off with. So just before I go into the, bear with me, let's see if I can. Yeah. Okay, so just to give you a bit of a brief background really to British Online Archives. British Online Archives is owned by a parent company, Microform Imaging Limited, which has been operating under various guises since go back to 1956. So the company has a very strong history in archival publishing, obviously as technologies would have dictated. This was predominantly through microfilm and microfiche. We continuously work with prestigious suppliers, archival repositories and libraries across the United Kingdom, including the National Archives, the British Library, the People's History Museum, but we also work with archival repositories and museums outside. A very recent example of that is the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, DC. And so British Online Archives is kind of has grown out of that kind of archival publishing tradition, and we currently have 93 primary source collections mainly covering the last 400 years of history, with a specific focus on 20th century warfare and international relations. As these are, particularly from an archival perspective, these are kind of the big areas in which academic institutions seem to be focused on. We also have, given Britain's relationship with the world over the past 200 to 300 years, we have a strong focus as well on Britain's colonial relationship with many territories, including India. So there's a strong emphasis on the history of the Raj, the East India Company, going all the way through to independence in the mid-20th century. And we have currently over 4 million images in total. So that's continuing to grow. We have lots of new collections, exciting collections that are currently being worked on at the moment. So yeah, we are quite a small independent publisher, but we are very ambitious in what we do, and we work with librarians, academics, to make these projects happen and to try and make them as universally relevant as we possibly can, and be able to spread awareness of British Online Archives through the world as a result. What I wanted to kind of focus on is our, from our own perspective, as to how archival content has been delivered in an online environment. I started working for the company in April 2011 as head of editorial for British Online Archives. And at that time, when I first joined the company, online archives was very much a novel concept, even within countries like the United Kingdom and the United States. And because of that, and because of people that were intrigued by what was going on, how we were putting collections together, how they were being developed, and how they were being displayed online, they were regarded very much by librarians and academics as a kind of a nice to have kind of product. It was something new, almost quirky in many regards, and it excited a lot of people as a result of that. And also to tie in with that, there was at the time certainly a greater focus on the raw content of the collections themselves, rather than things like which matter so much more today, functionality, supplementary materials such as contextual essays, academic works that help to contextualize the archival collections that were put together. And I think for us as a company, one of the when we first began to digitize archival collections, because as I mentioned before, our emphasis was on when we had published products before, they were microfilm and microfiche. A lot of the content, certainly in the early days, as far as British Online Archives are concerned, we digitized a lot of our existing collections from microfilm and microfiche. It was relatively quick and relatively cheap to do, and it was a good way in which to mitigate any kind of financial risk at the time, because it was still very much an experimental time for how people received online archives. Okay, so how things have developed. So if we fast forward from 2011 to today, the landscape with archives and digital archives and the impact that they have on academic research in higher education has shifted considerably. Digital archives are more integrated with teaching and research. So it's not just about books, ebooks, journals. Archival content has become a key cornerstone within academic research, beyond purely history as well. There's higher expectations of content. For example, effective search, navigation, detailed metadata right down to the image level in many cases, contextual essays, even the creation of editorial boards. So we work very closely with experts who have a specific interest in the content that we are trying to promote, and we rely on their input quite considerably in order to help us bring these collections to fruition. Greater impact seen beyond purely historical courses. So in addition to history courses, international relations and law, politics, and even media studies, we're finding that there's a lot more interest in archival content. For example, we have collections that look at the history of the British Broadcasting Corporation. So obviously the synergies there between that kind of transcend the purely historical are very clear to see. And that's reflected particularly in recent years with major academic consortiums and how they've been so receptive to the importance of archival research. So, for example, we have a very strong relationship with our main UK academic higher education consortium, the Joint Information Systems Council, or JISC, and we're part of a framework which brings digital archival collections to UK universities at a competitive price. But also the whole reason why consortiums like this exist is because of the importance that they place on archival research and the way in which that their member universities work with archives. So as far as the main benefits of digital archives, I suppose the biggest and perhaps the most fundamental benefit of that is that it eliminates the need for researchers to travel long distances. Now that seems fairly obvious, but it is worth reiterating because for many researchers, they may have to get on a train or a plane and travel halfway across the world in order to find the archival content that they're looking for. We tend to find that particularly with academics who are interested in content that's held that belongs to the history of British governmental content that's held at the UK National Archives. We have a lot of content that we publish on our website. So, that's a very obvious benefit. Primary sources more accessible to students. This is something that librarians have always been very keen, and not just for postgraduate students. There's a greater effort now to get undergraduate students to become more involved and to use primary source online content as part of their studies. So it becomes not something that's specific to just your average researcher, but has a very universal impact with everybody who's involved in higher education. Proven to be indispensable aids for specific research projects. We found specifically that students get the most out of archival content that we have in British Online Archives to help them with dissertations, in particular, undergraduate dissertations, master's dissertations, or PhD theses. These are very indispensable aids to help them with their studies. Valuable in teaching as well as a research environment. We're getting increasingly more and more feedback from teachers that they're not just using them as part of their research if they're in a library or if they're working from their office, but within a teaching environment, archival content can be used quite effectively to help lecturers and the like be able to deliver their lectures with archival content as an aid. Inspires new research. I mean, I suppose that comes back to a lot of academics, a lot of the feedback that we've received from academics, that they found content within our archives that they weren't previously aware of, and because of that, it's helped them to really inspire new fields of research, new areas. You know, so that's been a particular success, particularly within the last couple of years, I feel. Cross-disciplinary value, we mentioned before about archival content not being purely relevant to history courses, but also international relations, politics, international law, and media studies. So, you know, that's very good, not just from the perspective of the academic, but also from the librarian as well. And particularly librarians, if their budgets are limited, and particularly now, given the current circumstances with the coronavirus, that it's more important for archival content to be of as much cross-disciplinary appeal as possible, because then that will allow various different departments to share the financial burden and make things make archival or purchases of archival content or archival access to be that much more simpler. And I suppose that ties into the final point that we've got on this slide with regards to a one-time fee perpetual access. So our model, and it's a fairly familiar model across most commercial publishers of archival content, is that there is a one-time fee that's purchased, but a one-time fee that's applied. But once that fee has been paid, then that institution will have access for life to the content, both with regards to metadata and images as well. Okay, so just to kind of one of the things just to kind of tie up and end on what we are currently working on as a publisher, and one of the key things that we are starting to explore, really exciting, is the use of artificial intelligence and the use of AI, training AI to through the extraction of the OCR text from particularly printed material, to be able to get so much more and be able to add to a more effective search experience through named entity recognition. So instead of just purely focusing on individual search terms for people, places, geography can be extracted from that and be able to present in a way that makes our collections so much more accessible than what they were traditionally. And that also helps as well with data text mining as well, which is proven to be a great kind of aid for academics in the field of archival research. Improved OCR correction. So we've been able to revisit a lot of our collections that we've done in the past and be able to run them through new and improved methods of OCR, of optical character recognition, which is, because of that, it's been able to dramatically improve the quality of the text that's being extracted in order to ensure that better search results are being returned as a result. And then finally, high resolution and IIIF compatible image viewer. So we have a new image viewer that we've installed for new collections. For example, the first collection that looking at newspapers such as the Bengal Hukaru and the Bengal Gazette. So a lot of this kind of newspaper content, again, it adds to a better kind of user experience. And this is something that we're going to be rolling out widely, both for new collections and also for our more recent, our more recent collections that we have digitized from source, from paper rather than microfilm. And there'll be a lot more of this that'll be built upon as the months and years go by. So just to finish off here very briefly, we do offer free 30-day institutional trials for universities and libraries. The interesting thing to point out here as well is that we also, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we are open to, or we are making available our entire British Online Archives platform available for 60 days. It comes with no strings attached. There's no kind of obligation to buy at the end of that. We're very keen to ensure that students, whether it be over here in the UK, the United States, or in India, students get an adequate opportunity, particularly in the current circumstances, to be able to take advantage of all of our products, and we're very happy to do that. And yeah, I think that covers pretty much everything. As I said before, if anybody has any questions, I may not be able to stay until the end, but if you do pass them on to Shripana, I'll be more than happy to deal with them as and when that happens. But no, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, David. Definitely, if somebody has some questions for you, we will collect them and we will get back to you. The questions particularly, and particularly during your talk, how you explained how actually the digital archives are important in today's digital world, and how you people are planning to do it with the future technologies like AI and all, is actually very much interesting stuff that BOA is providing. So in case if anybody has any kind of doubt, they can contact us and we will get back to David with your queries and questions. So now next next for our panelist, I would like to invite Dr. Maltese sir. He is MSc Geology and from Karnataka University, and currently he is into Arunachal State University. India.
Central University.
Yes, a Central University. Sorry. Yeah. So his PhD topic was digitalization of rare Buddhist manuscript of Arunachal Pradesh. Yeah, that was a very interesting topic, I guess, sir. More than for 30 years, he has served as university librarian, at present serving as consultant library at Rajiv Gandhi University, Arunachal Pradesh. He has traveled extensively inside, outside India for his professional assignments, attended World Library Congress, different IFLA, Columbus, Ohio, USA. He is life member of many library professional bodies, recipient of Government of Karnataka Best Librarian. Yeah. So he's very much interested into acting, directing, script writing, telefilms, documentary films, painting and calligraphy as well. He has taught library and information service courses to PG and research scholars at the University of Agricultural Sciences, Dharwad, Karnataka, India. So, sir, I invite you. It's over to you. Please start your presentation. Thank you so much for being
here. Thank you so much, Sriparna. And really, your extensive introduction. Maybe I may not be, I'm just sharing my screen. Then after that, we'll go to, can you able to see my screen?
Not now, sir. Till now, we are
It
not
will
able-
come.
Yeah.
Now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. Before talking to my slides, I'm not an archivist. What Professor Ramesh and all other this spoke on archives and the importance of archives. I must thank to Balani Infotech and Sriparna and the whole team. I've been working in Northeast, that to Arunachal Pradesh, since 35 years. My topic, in fact, my PhD topic is digitization of rare Buddhist manuscripts of Arunachal Pradesh. In fact, we have plenty of manuscripts, rare Buddhist manuscripts, and those manuscripts are actually brought from, in fact, Tibet. When they came to India, then they brought so many manuscripts, and some of the manuscripts they kept it in Tawang monastery, and those manuscripts I wanted to digitize them and use it for the next generation. That was my research topic actually. Then NMM, National Manuscript Mission, helped me a lot, and it has been digitized and it is into their archive, National Manuscript Mission archives. In fact, in our library, we don't have archival material. And today's my topic is actually introduction to archival principles and standards and those policies actually. What are the practices they carry on, and how this archival materials will help the research scholars in their further research in their particular topic. So it is in fact mainly that the administrating archives and involves it is 5 main areas. How do you start administrating archive? Mainly the broader areas is yourself. First, you must decide what are the things you want to archive. Then information to manage, how to manage those archives, archival materials which are available. And people who will be involved in those archival material to be preserved or digitized or conserved, whatever method we have. Then the financial matters, because it is most important, the financial matter, who are going to finance to archive those materials, and how benefit, how those are useful for our research scholars or for further studies. Then the financial matter is very, very important. Who is going to finance them? Who is going to fund them to proper digitize or preserve? Then facilities, because when you talk about archives and some of the academic libraries, like our libraries, we don't have many facilities. Then equipments, it needs equipments and storage. The main thing is the storage. And some of the academic libraries, I know that some of the libraries, they don't have enough space for their books. But these rare archival materials, they have to store in such a place. It needs a different storage room or a different storage repository. And then the references, what Professor Ramesh said, that proper cataloging, that is 100% true, that we don't have a proper catalog to identify what are where are these archival materials are available. Now, maybe in online, and some of them they did it. They worked on that. Then we have to conserve. Conservation is another important aspect of archival. The conservation, without conservation, if you don't know the method of conservation or the conservation method, for example, manuscript conservation, when I went for a training in Lucknow, then they properly gave a training, and it was a proper workshop how to conserve those manuscript, at least manuscript. Then in my PhD topic, I suggested that photographic technique and not a scanning, the photographic technique, and it has to be digitized, and it should have a proper standards so that anybody can access, either it is online or maybe offline. So when we talk about all those things, we must properly first we have to organize those archival materials. That is more important. Then if you don't organize properly, we don't know where the things are and where we'll get, how to get. So research scholars will be they will have a tough time to search, you know. So the nature and what type of the nature and components of an archival policy, it should have a proper policy. Who should access it? How to access it? If they access, whether it has to be authentication, the proper authentication. And there are so many copyright acts and so many things. And some of them in Arunachal itself, some of them they are having personal collection of those Buddhist manuscripts, personal collection, thousands of collections. And during my research, during my PhD, in fact, I'm a part-time filmmaker as well. I took a professional cameraman with me. Then we shot the entire thing, what collection they have, and what condition they have, then how they are preserving, and whether they know they know the scientific method of preservation of those manuscripts. All those things we shot. Then it was edited and voiceover. We made it a small documentary kind of thing. So that should be. Otherwise, it will just waste and it will go away. And the next generation will definitely, they will not get the proper thing. So archival, what do they keep? What exactly we must decide what are the things we must digitize, we must conserve. Say for example, I can see this Ishappa Bandi is here, my friend from Bits Pilani. They have done very good work, his team and our Girish Kunkor and all. So they have all Birla's collections of the very old photographs. Those they digitized and properly they preserved, they kept it like that. We must decide what are the things we have to record. We have to, so it should be, then it should have a proper evidential information, you know, the evidential information, then only, then the value, how valuable they are. If you don't know the value of those archival material, say for example, manuscript, and what information it has got. This Buddhist manuscript is simply, we say that Buddhist manuscript, what is there in that content? What is the content? So it may be Lord Buddha's original preachings, and some of the manuscripts are written in golden letters, and those are preserved there in the museum, in Tawang Monastery Museum. And I could at least survey more than 50 odd monasteries, and I collected the information, and it was a good experience. So, and general conditions, and what is the general condition of archives? Now the priorities, we have to fix the priorities. Provide a suitable environment to make it secure, and without priorities, we have to make it a priority. Which one we have to do it first, and how valuable they are, and what are the things we have to keep it in proper format. We have to first, which one we have to do it first. The priority is important, and when we arrange or allocate the space, and the space is also very, very important, which in the beginning I've been speaking on the space. So it enhances the workflow. So if you don't have a proper space, maybe it is virtual space or it may be a physical space, but you have to decide those archival material has to be placed properly. then I'm going to give you an example here. When I went for the IFLAT this one conference, I happened to visit LinkedIn, the archival library is one of the best libraries. They have a sketch of the White House. This is Abraham Lincoln when Spielberg was making a film. Then this sketch helped him such a way that the windows curtains, how they are, and the tables and all those things, he did it the same way. So how the filmmakers, for example, when we talk about Sir Richard Attenborough's Gandhi, when they were making the film Gandhi, and our National Archives, Indian National Archives helped a lot, at least for costume designing. Banu Attaya, she did it so well. In those days, British time, or India, how it was, and what are the dresses they were wearing at that time, what type of cap they were wearing, everything detailed they studied. So it helps for filmmakers, at least for me. I'm also a part-time filmmaker. It's my interest. So whenever I want to make any film or documentary, obviously this archival material definitely helps. But of course,
Malti sir,
yes,
sorry
it is finished. It is finished. It is the
Okay,
last slide.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So Cleveland Archive Library, which I visited in USA, she's the archivist, and it is my luck that we really enjoyed. This much I wanted to tell, but I don't want to take much time. But I tell I'm not an archivist. I'm not just academic librarian. Thank you so much, and thanks a lot for giving me an opportunity. And if you have any questions, of course, later on I can come back. Okay.
Thank you so
only
much,
this
sir.
much.
Yeah. As you told, you are not from the archival background, but still how you have used the archival content in your filmmaking and all, it's very interesting. So yeah, definitely. Next, we have Dr. Usha Devi from Bangalore University. She's HOD over there for History Department. So some of her research interest topic are socio-economic history of modern India, economic history of colonial princely Mysore status, position issues, some of the problems on women education, how the problems regarding higher education of women, classes and poverty in Karnataka, socio-economic movements in contemporary India. She is member of many administrative and academic bodies, Faculty of Arts, Academic Council, advisory committees, boards of different boards of appointments, governing body BOS, BOE, BOAE from 1992 to 2018. She has traveled across the world, attending many international and national conferences relevant to her topic and published many articles in many national and international journals. Her other interests are women empowerment skill, eradication of poverty and landlessness, then laborer problems, then how promoting education, agricultural skills in rural areas, and many more. So she is from history background. Now we will hear her in terms of how archival content helps in history research. So welcome you, ma'am. I invite you to take over. Hello, Usha ma'am. Ma'am, unmute yourself. Ma'am, unmute yourself. Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, I wanted to congratulate the organizers, the Imperial College, and Milani Infotech. Thank you once again to giving me an opportunity to speak about the relevance of archives. I am being the student of history. We all know if there is no source, there is no history. So without sources, we can't write history because history is a record of the past events. Those records have to be or preserved in the archives. As most of the speakers here in this panel, they have given a wide information about the definitions of archives, the relevance of archives, the importance of archives, and again, the drawbacks of archives also. So with that background, I wanted to share few of my experiences as a student of history, I have got nearly 30 years of research experience in writing and rewriting history. In history, we have got two perspectives. One is destructing history, the other one is reconstructing history. So what and all that existed till now, the records, what are the sources that are available, might be used again and rewritten the history. The best example, like history of freedom movement in India. What are the leaders they participated? How the people had awareness about nationalism, the spirit of nationalism, how the Western impact had made to create the awareness among the Indians, the unity, integrity, secularism, so on and so forth. All these information we gather in the archives. For the first time in India, I think you all know most of the important scholars have spoken about archives that has been initiated and started in India during colonial period. So they started the National Archives of India, and again we have got the state archives and the regional archives and the local archives. We have got different parts of private archives and again the public archives and again the individual collection libraries or repositories, or what we call them the documentations. So with that background, archives plays a very important role. As I told you, my specialization was in socio-economic history of modern India, particularly colonial period. So during the colonial period, we know that it has been bifurcated into one is colonial, the second one is imperial. In both the periods, we come across the maintenance of the documents and the archives. One, there are two forms of archives. That is, one is the imperial archives, where the administrators, they bring in the documents, the proceedings, the reports, then again GOs, government orders, everything that as we call it them as the primary sources, which are published, some are not published. It has been handwritten. And we have got other secondary sources such as the pamphlets, then again the published records, the diaries, or again we call it as biographies or autobiographies. So many things we have preserved in the archives. So in archives, it plays very important role to turn back or see back or records that gives us more real information, the truth about the society, the polity, and again the cultural aspects of any country for that matter. So if you want to write or read the history of any country, or we have to write a new form of history of any country or a place, or an individual or a leader, anything for that matter, we have to consult the archival sources because they are not biased, they are not prejudiced. Sometimes it would be free from all these things, or sometimes it had got some intention. So when we go through the archival sources, there is lot of information we gather, the new things that could be found in history, because history is the pathway, and there are many quotations related to history. The person who don't know history, he has not learned history, cannot create history. That is the popular slogan given by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. So with that background, archives and the history and the sources plays a very important role for creating new form of society. How from a primitive method or a primitive period, that time has been transformed into a modernity. Now we are in a post-modern period, that is post-independence period. We have got our own government, our own people, our own culture. How to reconstruct or how to rewrite history about India, because we have got two forms of history on India. One is the colonial writers like Winston Smith, then again Adam Smith, Keynesian theory, everything, all Western ideas. So we have got at the same time the nationalistic perspective. What are that? Gandhian thought, Nehruian thought, Ambedkar thought, so on and so forth. Then we have got other Western Marxian thought, that is leftist ideology, that is capitalist ideology. All these things, the records have been preserved in the archives. So archives plays a very important role in creating a new form of society and economy, and it guides the political situations also in order to have a peaceful modern society. because I'm stressing here peace, we know that the history is nothing but, as Napoleon Bonaparte had quoted, the history is nothing but the history of the wars. Yes, certainly. Wars, we know that World War, the Great War, First World War, the Second World War, the Global War. Yes, that is there. So, what is the part that has been taken by India as a colony under the British rule? What are the contribution made by the Indians to the First and the Second World War? What are the changes that has been taken place in India during that war? All these sorts of information we gather from the archives. So in the archives, we know that in New Delhi, the National Archives of India is located. And in Karnataka, we have got Karnataka State Archives, which has been under the control of the government. These documents have been bifurcated into different departments, or like we have got home department files, we have got industrial files, we have got agricultural files, private collections, national movements, then biographies, autobiographies, all the information we wanted, because history is a multidisciplinary subject. So with that background, if we want to know history better, we have to go through the original sources. Those original sources or the document will help us to write or understand the past situations and the time period of our own country. So this is the information we gather from the archival sources. My another experiences I wanted to share with you all is that the maintenance of these archives are very poor in compared to any other Western countries. Particularly last year in 2019, I had an opportunity to visit UNO, that is at Geneva. I presented a paper also there, Human Rights Commission. So even HRC, I had taken part there. In that building, there is an archives, a library, UNO library, that I was very fortunate to visit the halls and the places and the records where I consulted that during the First World War, end of the First World War, the Treaty of Versailles, the 14 points of Woodrow Wilson, where they had written. I was very fortunate to see those halls, and again the handwritten documentations about the Treaty of Versailles, where we teach about the First and the Second World War for the students. Even now we will be teaching and continue to teach that wars are very unfair, but unfortunately in history wars are again repeating again and again. Anyhow, that peace treaty where they had signed in UN, that building was there, and all the documentation, preservations of document, and again the archival sources, the maintenance of the document, that is really very good, and we can't even expect such a maintenance in our own country, because we have got different drawbacks in maintenance. Might be the pesticides,
Usha
might
ma'am,
be the insects, so many things and all. Yeah.
Usha ma'am, sorry to interrupt. Like,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
So,
Yeah,
tell,
ma'am, we would like to
what I'm trying
go
to
to
tell is the relevance of archives is more important, that the archivist also, they are very positive in giving the documentation. And you know that all the archival materials in UNO are very not costly or not cheaper, it is free. So anyone could go to archives there, the libraries, everything is cheaper. Even all the material that has been digitalized is accessible to the public. So this things should be adopted by our own government, so that it helps the common people also, the researchers also, the academics also, everyone, that helps us in creating new form of society. So with that background, my opinion is that archives is a place where we can create a new form of history. We can write history in a positive manner. So the relevance of archives is most important for a researcher and a teacher. Thank you once again. These are the important topics I wanted to discuss with you on all. And if you have any doubts, you can consult me. Thank you once again for the organizers to giving me an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. How archives are important sources for historians, you shed a light on that. So that's actually a very good topic in terms of relevancy with a particular subject. So now after this, I would like to invite Mr. Vishwajit Saha. Presently, Shri Vishwajit Saha is working as University Librarian of Kazi Nazrul University, State University, Asansol. Before joining Kazi Nazrul University, he has served as Senior Assistant Library and Deputed Librarian of Dr. B.C. Roy Memorial Library at IIM Kolkata. He played a vital role in the transformation from manual and PGDCA. Presently, he is pursuing PhD in linked open data from University of Bardhaman. He has several publications to his credit, more than 31 plus, related to digital library automation and many more in different subjects. He acted as resource person and session chair and presented papers in international conferences held in Sapporo, Japan, and Singapore in 2017, in Thailand, Bangkok in 2018. So now I would like to ask Vishwajit sir to take over and deliver his views. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sipanaji. And I am sharing my screen. Is it okay?
Yes, sir. It's visible. It's visible.
Respected Professor Ramesh Gaurji, our keynote speaker, Mr. David Sarsfield, our guest speaker, and all other fellow colleagues, and of course, our Sriparnaji, who has invited me and given me a chance to deliver my speech on this webinar. Good afternoon, everybody. As a part of this webinar, I am going to present my paper as a, that is the topic is Archives, the Pivotal Sources of Information in Academic Research. I am Vishwajit Saha, University Librarian of Kazi Nazrul University, as already introduced Sriparnaji. I'll just present my paper in a very lucid language, and I'll just give an overview of what is archives, how it helps research, and what is the role of librarian as archivist, and what is the importance of archives, and what are the world famous archives in the world and as well as in India. Okay, my presentation will be maximum 10 to 12 minutes. First of all, the definition, this is obviously a part of this. We can say that an archive is an accumulation of historical records in any media or formats. It consists of records that have been selected for permanent and long-term preservation for their enduring cultural, historical, or evidentiary value. Also, we can say that it is an accumulation of historical records in any media or formats. And we know that it is available in any format. The documents in archives are available in any format. It's maybe a parchment, a vellum, a paper, a microfiche, microfilm, a photographic, negatives, and so on. There are some characteristics and qualities of any archives. First of all, it should be authentic. The documents which are available in any archive, it must be authentic. Okay, that will help the researchers. And the reliability, the documents should be reliable and integrity. That is, the content which is available in the archive should be sufficient to give a coherent picture. Usability, the archive should be accessible to the users. Although not all the documents are accessible to the users, because there is some restriction to use some resources. But usually for the researchers, it should be open for the researchers so that they can pursue their research. The various sources of archival documents, such as government, it should be national, international, regional, or local. And another thing is that courts and judicial bodies are also reliable sources for archival documents. Various business and corporate bodies, trade unions and workers' bodies, religious organizations, universities and schools, military bodies, theaters, filmmakers, performing groups, charities, voluntary organizations, communities, families, and obviously individuals. They also contribute a lot as a resource of archival document. As already Professor Ramesh Gaurji discusses regarding the types of archives, I'm just narrating in a nutshell. First of all, college and university library archives. These archives preserve the materials relating to a specific academic institution. And such archives may also be a part of the library collection. It generally helps the parent institution and alumni. For example, we can say Stanford University archives, corporate archives. These archives are generally formed within a company or corporate that manage and preserve the records of that business. These archives are mainly served of that particular company. That helps the companies to achieve their goals, such as Tata Central Archives. These archives mainly helps the Tata Group of companies. And another is Reliance Industries Archives. Such types of archives, a lot of archives are available in India and also abroad. Another very important archives, corporate archives, is Ford Motors Company's archives. In case of government archives, these are mainly the collection of materials relating to local, state, national government entities, such as the National Archives of India. This is very famous archives. Already Professor Ramesh Gaurji discussed about this. And also various state governments archives all over the India. These are also part of government archives. Historical societies are also play a vital role to forming the archives that preserve and promote interest in history of a region, a historical period, a non-government organization, or a subject, such as World History Archives, very important archives, World History Archives. Museums are also another types of archives that preserve items of historical significance. Indian Museum, Kolkata, we know these are very famous museum in India. Religious archives are those archives that relating to the traditions and institutions of a major faith, denomination within a faith, or individual places of worship. American Jewish archives, for example. Archives of special collection. Special collection archives that contains materials from individuals, families, organizations that deemed to have significant historical values. And these archives covers a wide range of subjects, from medicine to law, literature, fine arts, technology, etc. So next, archives and the library. A lot of similarities and differences are there. I'll just discuss a few. For archives, materials is usually acquired directly from the author or creator or collector or government. But in the case of library, generally we purchase materials from the publisher or vendor. In case of archives, materials are usually donated, not purchased. But in case of library, most of the materials are purchased. In case of archives, mostly unpublished material, microfiche, microfilm. Actually, I'm discussing all these things so that all the audience who participated here in this webinar can understand what is archive, what is their features. And another thing, the archives materials are usually unique and not available elsewhere. But library, the collection of a particular library also available in other libraries. And in archives, materials are organized according to a principle of provenance and original order. In case of library, generally organized according to subject classification. The another things that is in case of library, archives materials, generally the archivists do not circulate it, and that can be accessed going to the archives. But in case of library, the materials can be circulated to the users. And in archives, access to certain information may be restricted. All information are not open to the public. And also, in case of archives, some materials should be handled carefully. Sometimes users use the gloves to handle some very old material or fragile material or some photograph material. But in case of library, such restrictions generally I didn't see. So these are a simple comparison between archives and libraries. And here I have just tried to present that how the materials is organized in a archives. We know that most of us have, uses a library. We know how they are organizing their subject generally according to a classification number. But in the archives, generally there is a font. What is the font? Font is the entire body of records of an organization. And under fonts, there is a series. Series the documents arranged systematically or maintained as a unit because they relate to a particular function or subject. And under series, there is sub-series. And under sub-series, there is file. What is file? File is an organized unit of documents. And under file, there is an item. What is item? An item, an archival unit. It is an archival unit that can be distinguished from a group, and that is complete in itself. It is usually found within file. I'll take another 2-3 minutes. Siponaji, okay, don't worry. So, role of librarian as archivist. There are some similarities and dissimilarities both, okay, according to their role. I'm just here discusses that how librarians is playing their role as archivists. In case access or evaluation of materials, collection, organization, preservation, maintain, and also provide access to the records of documents. These are the common roles both for librarians and archivists. Work with both work with published and unpublished documents. They also evaluate, organize, and maintain documents in all formats. They have the in-depth knowledge of their content so that they can help the users. And also they also understand the user's need, what users is looking for, what types of information they are looking for. They know the user's need, both the archivist and also the librarian. So the last one is the importance of archives. What are the importance of archives? Actually, archives provide evidence of activities, provide in-depth information about individuals, about institutions, about societies, about a particular period, about a century, and they increase the sense of identity, understanding of culture, and also ensure the justice. And they are the witness to the past. They provide evidence, explanation, justification, both for past action and current decision that helps researchers a lot. Archives enable societies to undertake a wide range of roles that enable civilized communities to take root and flourish, from enabling education and research, providing entertainment and leisure, and for protecting human rights and confirming identity. Search it. Archive Finder. Here, access this site, you will find a lot of archives, world-famous archives, which are situated in America and UK. Next one is Archive Grid. This is content millions of collection, millions of archives you will find here. And another is archives in Canada. All the leading archives which are situated in Canada, both online, offline, you will find if you access this website. This is the first phase of Archive Finder. What you have to do, you have to log in here. First, you have to sign in, and then you have to log in. Then you will get the list of archives. All are not accessible, but most of them are freely accessible. But some restriction area are also there. So I'm coming to the Indian scenario. National Virtual Library of India, such as NDLI, National Digital Library, we know that it is situated in Kharagpur. And National Virtual Library of India is situated at IIT Bombay. This is actually, it is working to preserve the entire cultural heritage of India in the digital format. And another is National Archives of India.
Vishwajit, sir, sorry to interrupt. If you can wind up, we have one more panelist waiting for us.
Sure, another 1 minute.
Thank
you. Sure. And National Archive of India, it is situated in Kolkata at the Imperial Record Department. This is the biggest archive repository in South Asia. And also National Film Archives of India, National Mission of Manuscript, Archives of Indian Labor. Last but not the least, that is South Asian Archives. All we are well known about this. Excuse me. especially those who are university librarian, they know South Asian archives is being, access is being provided by the Isud Sindhu at free of cost. So it covers the period from mid 18th century to 20th century. And it covers the culture and society, industry and economy, science and technology, urban planning, policies and laws. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your very valuable, detailed knowledge about the archives. It was really very much interesting to know. Now, next we have Professor Madhumita Majumdar with us. She is a professor at Dhirubhai Ambani Institute of Information Communication Technology, Gandhinagar, Gujarat. She is trained in modern history and has a specialized interest in social histories of science, technology, and design, as well as in histories of landscape and space. Apart from her publications on the disciplinary histories of science in Bengal, she has co-authored a book titled New Histories of the Andaman Islands and Landscape, Place and Identity in the Bay of Bengal, 1790 2012. Cambridge University Press, Cambridge 2016. Professor Majumdar is a keen advocate for strengthening of public libraries, archives, and all kinds of institutional repositories as the part of her commitment to the conservation of the cultural and intellectual property, intellectual heritage of the country. So, Madhumita ma'am, I invite you and ask you to take over the place. Thank you so much for being with us, and sorry for keeping you waiting.
No, thank you very much, Sriparna. Thank you, Balani Infotech. This has been a great opportunity for me to learn and to interact with other colleagues in the field, particularly because I think that I've been struggling with certain questions that the new possibilities of archives in the age of the digital have raised. I think many of you know that a new discipline, a new area of studies called digital humanities is now a very productive area for research for humanities scholars particularly, and this has been largely motivated by scholars from the literature, social sciences, and history. In this conversation that I thought that I would have, and I mean, we have a very short period, I mean, just 10 minutes, I don't know how much I can say, but I just wanted to say that I am going to sort of, in a way, I share the optimism of David Sarsfield in the possibilities of the new digitized archives and the application of computational tools. On the one hand. On the other hand, I share the pessimism, or to some extent the anxieties about the state of the archives in India today, which Professor Gore very poignantly expressed. I really thank Professor Gore for actually bringing this into attention, because yes, I mean, how many of us would have known that we still don't have archival science as a recognized academic discipline, apart from the kind of short course that is offered by the National Archives. And on the other hand, the notion that archives be made a more welcoming space, more accessible to users, because unless the archives become more organized, more rationalized in their particular structures, more welcoming, we won't be able to match up to the kind of advances that are being made in areas of scholarship, which are being based on the new digital archives combined with the new computational tools. There's a huge field of scholarship waiting out there to be explored. And while many of us are excited by those prospects, we know that we are not being able to do very much because of the limitations that we have. And I'm just going to give you a brief sort of an overview of some of the projects that, I'm a very sort of old-fashioned historian in the sense that, I grew up working at the National Archives and in a very traditional way. And in my mid-career, now I've discovered that, the ways in which, the conventional ways in which we approach the archive are undergoing change because of the new kinds of possibilities thrown up by the new huge, large databases that are available to us. So how do we as historians take advantage of the opportunities, and how in the process we as users and as academics need to relearn some of our methods in collaboration with the archivists on the one hand, and how archivists also need to engage with academics in a more meaningful way. Then we can open up new areas of scholarship and make a meaningful contribution. So what I'm going to do is now share my screen. Is this screen visible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am. Screen is visible. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the promise of digital history, history in the age of archival abundance. I mean, this is not a talk that I prepared for particularly for today, but something I've been thinking about for a long time. And part of the reason is that, you know, in 2016, I was introduced to this project. This was a Republic of Letters project. It was incubated at the University of Stanford. And of course, it was in a way done in collaboration with other institutions in Europe, and particularly Oxford, the library at Oxford. And what was it about? Now, I'll tell you why I was so fascinated by this. Now, what was the Republic of Letters? The Republic of Letters was the long-distance intellectual community in the 17th and 18th centuries in Europe and America. It fostered communication among intellectuals in the age of the Enlightenment, as they were called, and the philosophers, as they were called in France. The Republic of Letters emerged in the century as a self-proclaimed community of scholars and literary figures that stretched across national boundaries. To put it briefly, now this was a project which was looking at the scholarly exchange between, let's say, figures like Erasmus, the Dutch philosopher, humanist scholar, and on the one hand with Alexander von Humboldt, scientist. Then you have Benjamin Franklin from America. This is a century-long process of scholarly exchange between Europe and America, based largely on letters exchanged between these scholars in various parts. Now, these letters, of course, have been digitized, and they have been, in a way, put together in ways in which historians can look at them in more interesting ways with new technologies, because you know that handwritten letters from the 15th and 16th centuries, of course, will be difficult to use. So the mapping of the Republic of Letters, as I told you, this project was incubated at Stanford. What it did was to make these discrete archival repositories in Europe and America come alive. And how do you make them come alive? They tried to bring about interactive visualization tools and create repositories and include important metadata. And everybody is talking about the importance today of evidentiary information or contextual essays, that when you have an archival artifact, it's not just enough to just catalog it and put it in a particular digitized file, but the metadata surrounding it is far more important as to at what time this was written, in what context, and so on. So this project, of course, this is now a digital archive, and you have these figures, and you have different kinds of tools to show the volume of letters exchanged, the time in which these letters were exchanged, the subject matter that was exchanged, the frequency of subject matter, particularly related to science, religion, philosophy, etc. How they used a lot of maps to show how these people traveled to Europe and America at that time, and what was the nature of the consequence of that. So data visualization. This was all done. And what I'm trying to say is this project would not have been done without a collaboration with the historians and the archivists. And that is why, and of course, archivists who were also trained in certain technologies. So that was one project which really opened my eyes to the possibilities of what can be done to retell a story of history of ideas. Now, everybody knew these figures as individual figures who wrote about various things. But how did they generate a larger public discourse of these ideas to make Europe aware of new ideas of Republican values of liberty, equality, fraternity, and so on, which finally was the context for the French Revolution. Then you had another project, the American Slave Project. And I'm just going to show this and stop. So the American Slave Project was another collaborative project between various archives in Africa and in Europe and in America to explore the dispersal of enslaved Africans across the Atlantic world. Again, this required different kinds of collaboration and a different way of telling a story. Digital history writing requires a different kind of history, storytelling in what we call hypertextual format, and where you use different archival material. On the one hand, you can use textual material, letters, photographs, maps. And of course, in certain projects, maps become hugely, hugely important. There is the British Library, for example, has a huge repository of maps. Many of us don't know how to interpret those maps. This requires different kinds of scholarship. So what I was trying to basically say that in the new kind of context of the possibilities of the archive, in the age of the digital, we are seeing the emergence of new possibilities of scholarship, collaborative work, not just across institutions, but more importantly, and this is where I'm going to stop because I think I'm almost reaching time, that there has to be more conversations between people, both the users and the archivists. And therefore, going back to both Professor Gore's and David Sarsfield's conversations, or rather the talks or the points that they pointed out, that the archive needs a certain, particularly India, a certain reimagination. And that reimagination demands more collaborative work at the academia to make the archives come alive. These are very, very rich resources, which other panelists have pointed out. And we have to make a concerted effort, particularly in India, if we want to drive new or open up new areas of scholarship. We need to make the archival sciences much more robust, to train ourselves in new technologies, and to have more collaborative work. So I think I'll end here, and maybe when there are questions, I can come back to those. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhumita ma'am, for taking our attention towards the importance of metadata in terms of archival content as well, because we all know in technological papers and all how metadata plays a very important role. So like which information when to use is very much important. So with this, we come to an end of our session. Thank you so much. Thank you very much to all the participants, to all our speakers, Gaur sir, Malte sir, Usha ma'am, Vishwajit sir, Madhumita ma'am, for your valuable inputs, for taking time from your busy schedule to come and talk with us on this important schedule. Now I request my team to open the chat box for question and answer session. And if we have some questions, we will get back to our speakers. And we have a quiz waiting for you all after the question and answer section. So wait for us, and then quiz section will be shared with you all so that you can answer the quiz and win the exciting prizes that we have. So thank you so much. We are open for the question and answer section. You can post it over the chat box. So still now I am not seeing any of the questions right now. But really, I must say, I am a student from scientific background, but after knowing the depth of archival content and how important it is, it was very fascinating for me as well to know about all this stuff. So I guess you all spoke so very well that all the concepts are clear for our participants, and right now they don't have much questions with us. So I would like to ask our team to share the quiz section so that our participants can Google them or answer them or whatever they
Aparna,
wish like. Yeah, Vaibhav.
there are few questions are in the chat box.
Just a second. I'm not able to see the chat. Wait a second. Yeah. Okay, our repositories and archive. Okay, we have few questions. So, Gaur sir, I would like to ask you, there is one question. Are from Shanku Roy, are repository and archives are same or not? Um, yes, sir, Gaur. Yes, sir. So you have to unmute yourself. You're on mute.
Sriparna, there was some problem in my audio, so I'm not able to hear you.
Yes, sir, there is a question. Are repository and archival content are same? This is from Shanku Roy.
See, repository can have archival content or uh, digital library contents, different types of content, because repository can be we can call a digital archive repository, but there are certain specific archival contents uh, which are meant for uh, certain purposes or certain objective. So basically, when we talk about archival content, we use word either digital archive. Digital repository is popularly used for institutional repository or contents which are of current nature. So the archive defines the contents which are of historical or rare or unique. So if you refer repository, people may understand it is current information. But when we use digital archive, we are talking about the contents which are of unique or historical nature or special collections.
So we have another question for you again. Let us know about the training provided outside for archivists in India. As you told that there is no such training programs in India. So Ruchi Srivastav is asking that. What are the trainings that are provided for archivists?
There are a number of foreign university. They have a master's in archival science in Europe and in US also. If you are interested in going abroad, you can think of doing masters in archival science. Besides that, like Madhumita talks about digital humanities as one of the emerging subject, and in that context, like there are a lot of interdisciplinary studies. If you see the like in US, there is a lot of integration between museum, libraries, and archives. Here, the unfortunate part is that library science has not considered archival science as a subject. So if you see the library science contents, there is nothing about archives and archival science. So that's why there are not much opportunities in India. So if you want to go outside, then there are a number of courses available in different universities, masters in archival science.
Thank you so much, sir, for your answers. Vishwajit sir, there is one question like by Jaya Chitra. What are the exact difference between archives and the library? Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. You have to.
Actually, library resources can be available to the public, okay, both online, offline, and there is no much restriction. But in case of archive, there is some restriction. All records are not open to all, and also some precautions should be taken while using the materials. Okay, this is mainly the difference. Another things also, library main role is to serve the patron or users. Okay, and archival, those who are archivists, their main role is not to serve the patron. Okay, their main role is to preserve properly.
Okay, so here was another question. What is the exact role of archivist? I guess you have answered the same, both in a single question.
Sriparna,
Yes, sir.
let me just little differ from Biswajit, what Biswajit is showing. The main role of maybe archivist or library science, the main object is always to provide access to the material. Yes, preservation is required to preserve it for the longer duration and treat it. But the main role of it may be a librarian or a archivist is to provide access to the repository contents, archival content or library content. The basic main difference between libraries and archives is that libraries are the repository of current information or current ongoing research. Archives are the repository of the document of historical nature, rare or special collections, which are kind of document which are responsible for records of the society, records of the history of the people or development of the society, and which are required by one generation to another generation. Like in libraries, a book of any particular book may have next new edition. After that, old edition become obsolete. But in case of archival, all contents they are, if they are more old and rare, they are considered the rarest, and the value of the contents are more in case of rarity and the uniqueness and oldness of the document. So I think something I just make it to more clarify on this one.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That part I missed actually. Okay, thank you.
Malti sir, I guess there is one question which you would like to answer. Where is the best archives related to Gandhi as a journalist one can found to work upon?
Gandhi.
Yes, sir. Related to
Gandhi Kendra is there, Gandhi. There are so many now national archives in our India itself. There are a lot of work on Gandhi. So you can, if you are interested in Gandhi, there are so many materials available on Gandhi. For example, when I just spoke about Richard Attenborough's film Gandhi, so those archives only helped him.
So I guess we have answered quite a few questions, and now I thank you all very much for giving your valuable time for us. And we will be sharing the recording over our all the social media platforms. In Facebook, we were live on Facebook as well. You can see the recording there as well. So now I request my team to share the quiz part. So I guess the participants who wish to join us for the quiz part, they should go through. We will be sharing the link in our chat box section where the participants will be able to see.